Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Reading Solutions UK. Are you looking for best practices and innovative strategies to foster confident, lifelong readers? Join the free online International Reading Conference on the 11th, 12th and 13th of June. Hear from speakers like TV personality and education expert Basit Siddiqui, beloved children's author Michael Rosen, fluency expert Tim Rosinski, EEF specialist Chloe Butlin, the National Literacy Trust's Irene Picton, and a range of experienced practitioners, including MAT leaders, deputy heads, heads of English, high-level teaching assistants, and school librarians. Through the three-day conference, speakers will explore a range of topics at the forefront of the current educational landscape, with sessions relevant for all educators and key stages. Visit Reading Solutions at readingsolutionsuk.co.uk for more information and to sign up for this free conference.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello, welcome to the Twilight Show on Friday the 17th of May. I'm Maxine, and tonight I'll be focusing on the important, privileged and challenging role of the head teacher. I'll be talking to Monique Berry about her first year as head of a primary school. We'll be chatting about the high points and challenges, asking what qualities have served her and what she has learnt, and how do culture, vulnerability and authenticity show up in her leadership.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello, welcome. It's fantastic to be here on the Twilight Show today, Friday the 17th of May. And as I said in the introduction, tonight's show is all about that privileged, fantastic, challenging role of head teacher. I'm going to be talking to Monique about her first year as head of a fabulous primary school, and we'll be chatting about those high points, the challenges, and I'm going to be asking what qualities have served her, what she's learnt while she's been there, and how do culture, vulnerability and authenticity show up in leadership at her school. And we're going to be providing some words of advice for new or aspiring head teachers. So being the head teacher, I am, of course, a former head teacher myself. I was head for 13 years in total, and that was 2 headships in the middle school sector. And now my work is still largely school-based. I'm volunteering as a governor, and I have the privilege to work across and volunteer in a number of schools, and therefore get to meet quite a few fantastic head teachers. It really is a privilege to see them doing such brilliant work. So the work I do now, such as coach, advisor, or volunteering as a governor, or going in to speak about initial teacher training, I see the role from outside. I'm looking back in. But I can really remember how it felt. And, you know, from my perspective, it was wonderful. Headship is a wonderful job. And in terms of purpose, making a difference, you know, the impact of a head is significant. But the role can be absolutely all-consuming. There is so much to do. Getting the priorities right, delegating can be a huge challenge and a real learning curve for many. Having your own school is, however, an immense privilege. So we're going to be talking about some advice for new or aspiring heads, and you know what you can do and how what this first year is likely to be about, and what it's likely to be what you're going to face. And one of the things that I'd start with, and I'm going to end the show with this as well, because this for me is really important, is as a priority thinking and developing your own self-awareness. The better you know yourself and your strength and your areas for development, what you find difficult, the better you can actually make a plan to address those areas, which also will mean building your team around you to back up those areas where you're not so strong. Knowing what will sap your energy and what helps energize you so that you can work. And if you've got to do part of your role is something that really, really drains you, that you find really, really tough. And sometimes some people who you might think are real extroverts and thrive on being surrounded by people actually find, like I did, find that really difficult. And knowing that, identifying that, that really heavy people load that you have to deal with, the better you know that, the better you can look after yourself and make sure you take time out, and make sure after those times when there's loads and loads of people around you, knowing what you need helps you to allow yourself to do the things that help you to thrive. Re-energizing is so, so important. So that head teacher role, it can be argued, and I would agree with this argument actually, that the head teacher is the person who has the single greatest impact on their school. And I've heard a really well-respected CEO that I do some work with put that argument forward, and to just really, really emphasize everybody else who works, say, for example, in a big trust or in a big authority. If we're talking about the one person who has the most impact on all of each school, it is those individual head teachers. They make key decisions, shape the future, and are such a key part of the school's culture. What the tone that the head teacher sets, who and how the head teacher sets that tone, is so important and has a huge, huge impact. So really, really important people. Monique, I can see that you're here with us already, which is absolutely fantastic. So I can't wait for you to join us and start to chat about what you're doing. And while you're getting yourself ready to do that, I'll just run through a couple of other things. So we've spoken about culture, school culture on this show before, and head teachers aren't the only ones who influence it. Senior leaders, middle leaders, teachers, in fact, all parts of the school community have a part to play. But there is a real strong argument that the head teacher has that strongest role, and plays that greatest part. And again, if we think about what school culture is and why and how that's important, then we know that what we mean by school culture, it's the guiding beliefs and values that are evident in the way a school operates. So if you think about how a school works, how the attitudes are, how people behave, how the values are in that school, that is really what the school's about. And it's just, that is such an important role there for the head teacher in guiding that. So the head teacher standards, in relation to school culture, head teacher standards set out the head teacher's role in that really important role. And the phrase about culture eats strategy for breakfast, even though we know that actually wasn't said as it was, but what it means is that without a strong culture, the strategy can't work. So the head teacher standards state that the head teacher establishes and sustains the school's ethos and strategic direction in partnership with governors and through consultation with the school community, that they create a culture where pupils experience a positive and enriching school life, that head teachers uphold ambitious educational standards which prepare pupils from all backgrounds for the next phase in their education and life, that they promote positive and respectful relationships across the school community, and a safe, orderly and inclusive environment. And finally, it really states in the head teacher standards that head teachers are expected to ensure a culture of high staff professionalism. So this really important role, the head teacher, is a really, really important role. And, Paul Drucker, who didn't say culture eats strategy for breakfast, but he did say strategy is important, but culture has a significant impact on the enactment and the results of the strategy. So we know that is super, super important. We know that the head teacher has a really strong contribution to make to that culture. And if we look at somebody again who is quoted a lot in education world, if we look at Tom Bennett in 2017, he wrote in his piece, considering behaviour, the importance of a shared understanding of culture and vision is so important. He wrote quite a lot about that, and he wrote that the range of features shared by a successful school include committed, highly visible school leaders with ambitious goals supported by a strong leadership team, and a clear understanding of what school culture is. This is how we do things around here, and these are the values we hold, and being really explicit about those. And the role of the head teacher and their senior team in that is huge. And that those ideas around school culture, the values that we hold, are effectively communicated, realistic, detailed expectations, and that they're understood clearly by all members of the school. Again, that's one of the things that he says is a feature of a successful school. He also talks about highly consistent working practices through the school, high levels of staff and parental commitment to school vision, and high levels of support between leadership and staff. For example, staff training and attention to also the important things, attention to detail and thoroughness in the execution of school policies and strategies, and the expectations of all students and staff are really high, and that they're understood, and a belief that all students matter equally. Again, those types of beliefs, those types of key elements of school culture, they can't just be laminated on the wall and say, this is what we believe, this is what we are as a school. The head teacher has that huge role in making sure that they are lived. And again, quoting Bennett again, he says, design the school culture you want to see. And he's really clear that cultures require deliberate creation, and a key role of school leadership is to design a detailed vision of exactly what the culture should look like for that school, focusing on social and academic conduct, and expectations should be as high as possible for all. So again, you think about how the head teacher, their role in that, their role to define exactly what culture needs to be like in their school, exactly how we're going to be. To also then have a vision for what the school's going to achieve and what the school's going to be like, and where we're going over the next 5 years. To also then have a really strong strategy to write that. Going back again to when the conversation that we had with Alex Gregson a few weeks ago, that really important leadership quality of being able to actually create that strategy, to go from vision to actually into reality, and to communicate and to articulate that strategy. Again, really important role for a head teacher. So I think, having done that little preamble there, I think we're probably going to be about ready to go and talk to Monique about her first year, and just, ask Monique about how she does all of these things. So, but first, excellent. I can see Monique has joined us. And while Monique, while you're just connecting, I can see you're connecting. One of the things that I'm just going to do while you're doing that connecting and you're just getting in with us is I'm just going to hear really briefly from some of our sponsors. Teach Well Toolkit, really important for head teachers.
I've always considered myself to be a caring head teacher who acts sensitively to support staff mental health. But what I found increasingly difficult was managing the negative impact on staff mental health when resolving issues related to their employment or daily work. Heartfelt Leadership has been developed by Teach Well Toolkit as a handbook to support head teachers to overcome the challenges of school improvement while supporting staff well-being. We know that difficult conversations can quickly turn into conflict if procedures are not fully transparent, understood and followed. Our handbook takes you through step-by-step processes while maintaining mutual respect, avoiding conflict, and finding solutions.
At Bloomsbury Education, we're passionate about supporting teachers with high-quality professional development books from leading experts. Whether you're navigating your first crucial years as an early career teacher or a more experienced teacher looking to refresh your practice or take a step up into leadership, our award-winning books are here to help. We publish practical books to support teaching across primary and secondary, from the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design. Visit the Bloomsbury Education website at bloomsbury.com/education to find out more and use code BLOOMTTR24 to save 20% on all education titles. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
Thank you. Great to hear from our sponsors. So, Monique, welcome. It's wonderful that you're here. Thank you so much. It's been SATS week. You've had a Heads Immersion Day today. So it's been a busy week. So thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. And it's lovely to speak to you again, Maxine.
It is. It's so lovely to speak to you as well, Monique. And we've worked together for a little while. When just before you came into your headship, I spent some time in your school with your now wonderful team. And well, now they were wonderful then, but now they're your team. You know what I'm meaning, Monique. And then really had the privilege to work with you. So again, just being a bit of an interloper and dropping into your school for a couple of weeks. So it's a couple of days a week. So it's really nice to have you here and for you to talk about your fantastic school. So if we might start by just hearing a little bit about you and about your journey and about you as a human being and you as a head teacher, Monique.
Okay, so a bit about me. I am currently a head teacher, like you said. I started in September. Prior to that, I was a deputy head teacher at a primary school in Dunstable. So I've worked within the same trust for about 3 years. And my sort of educational journey was actually that I trained to be a secondary school teacher, believe it or not, to do a subject in PSHE about 18 years ago now. And from there, I sort of made my way through secondary to special education to supporting outreach in secondary schools and primary schools, and worked in a special primary school, which then sort of led me to want to get into primary education. And here we are today being head teacher of a primary. So if you'd have said to me 18 years ago, you're going to end up being a head teacher of a primary school, even though I'm doing a secondary PGCE, I would never have believed it. So things have a way of working themselves out for the better. So it's been a very interesting journey. And yeah, it's been a lot of learning and a lot of growth along the way, which has definitely put me in the best place where I need to be now.
Well, you are in a good place, Monique, and you're doing such a fantastic job in the school you're in. You've had a really, really interesting career. And I think for anybody who listens back, who maybe is, going into teacher training at the moment and thinking, oh, I'm not sure exactly where to go, you really show them that actually, once you're in, you can create your route through and find those opportunities that work for you.
Absolutely. I think it's fair to say you shouldn't pigeonhole yourself. I think even if you are doing a primary training at the moment, or your secondary or a specialist subject, or going into special education, I think the beauty of education is that there is so many different avenues to take, and there's so many different ways that you can sort of, show your specialisms and your capabilities, that it would be easy to keep yourself in one sector and think that's all I can do. And I think, as you know as well, Maxine, the education world is a place where actually we need people who have all different experiences now, who are able to collaborate with different people and work with different people. And it benefits the young people if we have those, expertise around us that we can call upon, that we can lean upon. And even as individuals, as professionals ourselves, our CPD is brought about by the people that have had those lived experiences. So for me as a head teacher as well, I always encourage, especially my own staff, to develop themselves, to go out, to see things, to read things, sort of push them, if they have an idea about something, to really pursue that and to have a look into it further, and not just think, oh, because I'm doing this role at the moment, I can't see myself doing another role in a few years' time. So it's about developing not just yourself, but also developing people around you as well.
And that to me, Monique, that really feels like that whole idea about saying that you've got a culture of being lifelong learners. That's you actually living that and encouraging your team to live it as well. That's a really beautiful example, I think, of actually, a vision and a culture in practice, what it looks like.
Yes, it is. And I think, anyone who works with me now, I'd hope they would say that I just push them to share their ideas. And, the school has grown, not just because of my leadership, because I'm not very good at taking praise, as you know, but I also feel it's grown because people have come to me with their ideas and their visions for what they expect the school to be. And I've said to them, go for it, show me what you can do. And obviously we're here to make mistakes, we're here to build bridges, we're here to sort of progress the children, progress ourselves, raise standards and outcomes, all of those different things. But ultimately, if I was to be the leader that just said, actually, I've got all the ideas and my way is the right way, we wouldn't get where we are. And I believe a lot of what's happened for our school in particular is simply because we're all sort of, heading in the same direction. We all want the same thing, but it's because I've given them the time to be who they want to be. And like I say, that human side of me is one that really believes in relationships and building people up and, just practice what you preach in a way. So don't sit there in your office and sort of not doing, sweeping the floors or being on duty or being visible or having these ideas. I think it's about showing people that it's okay to put your voice out there, to have an opinion on something, because you just don't know where it's going to take you.
No, you're absolutely right, Monique, and absolutely living that model of headship of what you want for people is so important. So if we look at your first year, we look back over the last 12 months,
Yeah.
what has been fabulous? What have been the real sort of high points, and what's been great about being ahead in this last 12 months?
Gosh, there's so many. I think.
And that was really, that was
Yeah.
really genuine. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, there's so much that's
There
great.
is so many. Yeah. I mean, I suppose ultimately for me, again, like I said, I've built everything I do on being human and building relationships.
Yeah.
So the biggest change I think I would have to be, and I know this is the culture of the school in general. I
Yeah.
think, having staff that want to be there, that want to do the best by the children, by the families, by themselves, has just been amazing. It's been so, I know it sounds cheesy, but heartwarming and inspirational, because this school in itself has been on a journey, and the staff have worked so hard this year to, raise the standards, to be there for the children. The children have changed so much as well. They're happy,
Wow.
they're smiley, they come in. Our relationships with families is different now. We're working more with our local community, with schools around us. And we are part of a multi-academy trust, but we are branching out into the local area where we are as well. So for me, the positives have been, there's been so many to talk about. Obviously, recently we've just had our year 6 SATs, and it's more about their attitude towards that week, because we know the SATs are very stressful, they're very difficult, they're very, all consuming for such a long time. But again, just to see that we've worked towards building the children up to be who they are and to be resilient and to just have those personalities, it's just been incredible to see. And like I said, the staff have just taken it on, and for me that's been one of the biggest achievements, is just seeing the staff grow and develop as they should be as individuals as well.
So some of the key things then, just that I've heard you talk about there, you've got a lot of the adults in the school, a lot, your team, who now really want to be there, who are coming forward with their ideas, who are sharing with you thoughts and ideas of what they want to do. That's resulted in your numbers increasing. It's a more popular school, and you're seeing a change in the children, that real can-do attitude. And my goodness, SATs are really tough. So those great successes are absolutely, amazing. Congratulations to you, Monique. That's
you.
real change. That's real growth. And in a school in a pretty fantastic community. Actually, it's so good to see that. And congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, again, I find it hard to take praise, even in doing all these things. But I suppose, like you say, the outcomes are there in front of you. And it's not always about the data. For me, it's about, like you say, seeing the children having those difficult conversations with parents in September and then having those same parents come to you a few months later and smile and thank you, or, you know, sharing the goodness of the newsletter, updating people. It's been, like I say, it's been wonderful and really encouraging to know, I suppose, as a new head, that you are making a difference.
Yeah.
And I suppose the biggest doubt people have as a new headship is that, can I do this?
Yes.
Can I actually do the job that some other people think I can do because they employed me to do it? And I think everyone comes home some days and thinks, oh my goodness, did I actually do that today? And I still have those moments. Even this week I've had those moments. And you know, you still question yourself sometimes, but ultimately, when you can see the progress that you've made, and it is about stopping and reflecting, and it is about looking back, not in a negative way, but in a way that you think, actually, we were, you know, we were at this point in September, and you know the school itself.
Yeah.
And to be here now in May and thinking about what can only become of, you know, more work and more progression is just, it's exciting actually to feel like the journey that we're on now is, we haven't even really got started, I feel. So, you know, there's still stuff to do and still lots of work to do, but everyone seems really keen to want to get it done.
That's really positive. And, you know, hearing that excitement in your voice is wonderful. And, you know, you almost look, it's a bit like when you've climbed part way up a mountain. You're not at the top yet, but when you look back and you look how tiny where you've parked the car or where you started looks now, you can see how far you've come and how well you've done.
You can, and I think it's one of those situations where I was just talking to my girls tonight. I've got 2 children, and I said to them that I was going to the podcast, and they were like, "Oh, are you going to be famous?" I went, "No, not really." I said, "But it's nice to share what I do," and they actually said to me, "Yeah, you've done so much though, Mum," and for them to recognise it. I think, I take it for granted that, you know, you know, when you become a head teacher, you sacrifice a lot.
Yes.
But at the same time, when other people can see it and they can see, actually, you know, you are doing such an incredible job, or, you know, the people around you have developed and grown, and it does make you get out of bed every morning, even though you some days think, oh gosh, here we go again. And that's what keeps you going, I think, as well.
Absolutely. And, you know, you certainly know there are many children in your community, on your school's community, that are getting a better deal and they're getting a better education thanks to the things that you and your team are putting in place, which is, you know, really positive.
Yes, I'd like to think so.
I think we know so. So coming on, you've alluded to being a mum, and you've spoken of your 2 girls. Just, you know, a couple of things that I noticed about you early on when you first started coming in, you know, in the early days of Headship, that I found really interesting, where you've always talked about your girls and about who you are as a person and how you are. And have brought, I think, quite a lot of Monique, the person, to that role, which is, you know, all about authenticity and vulnerability. Here's me, here's my life, this is how I'm going to be in my school. Does that resonate with you? Was that deliberate, or is that just how you are?
That's just how I am. I'm a very open and honest person, and I believe that when people see you for you, it breaks down barriers and it breaks down walls. And my first inset day, because I know you were sat there watching my presentation, I mulled over what should I do, and you Google all these things about first head teachers inset day, and you know, you should put this in it and do this and do this and make it formal or make it this. I'm thinking, oh God, I said, that's not me. So I just literally did a presentation about me, my family, my crazy Hungarian visitor dog who's scratching at the door as we speak. And, you know, my children, my partner, you know, what I enjoy doing. Because I think when you become a head teacher, that title in itself is quite overwhelming, not just for you, but for the people that you represent and the school you represent. And, you know, people are looking up to you because now you're in charge.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you just have to remind people that, yes, it's a title, but I am actually also Monique. I'm a mum. I like to, you know, go for walks. I like to go out. I like to have a laugh. I get stressed like everybody else, you know. I like to have a giggle. I'm not this robot that comes in and ticks a few boxes and makes decisions for the best interest of everyone else. It's about having those conversations. And if you are having a tough day, one thing I value so much about where I work and the team that I have around me is that they all feel safe enough to share if they are having a tough day. And
Right.
they share the good days, they share the bad days with me. And same for me, if I'm having a bit of a day where I'm thinking this is really tricky, I've got a great SLT who I know I can walk into their office, and for about 5 or 10 minutes we can all just sit there and go, right, okay, how are we feeling, what's going on? And I think that has truly come from the fact that I started off by basically saying I am a human being, I'm not just here to, make you progress as a school. I'm here to actually work with you on that level. And yeah, that is just me through and through. And some people may disagree with that, and some people may think you've given yourself too much, or you've given yourself away, or you've opened yourself up too much. But I disagree. I think for me it's worked really well, because people do see me for me, and there's nothing to hide. And that is my authenticity, and I can be vulnerable, and I do have moments when I find conversations with parents difficult, but I tell the staff, you're not alone with that, because I struggle to talk to ex-parent, or I struggle to learn this data sheet, for example, or because data is
I'm
not
with you on that one. Yeah.
hence why I've got a fantastic SLT who, her spreadsheets are her forte. So, like you said, you have to show your team that actually you don't know everything, but let's do it together, and maybe we'll learn along the way, and maybe we'll find ways we can do it. And I really value their opinion as well. And that's another thing I said about when I first presented to them. I said, we have to do this together. We have to be on the same page. It cannot just be me leading from the front all the time in regards to making all the decisions, because I might make decisions that you don't agree with, but at the same time, you may have ideas that will sort of, push us forward even more. So it's finding that balance, but I believe it's hopefully working out for the better.
So that's really, really interesting, Monique. And certainly one of the things that I've observed in your leadership has been that openness, that vulnerability, that human being first. And that links to a show I did about 6 weeks ago with Alice Gregson. And she quoted Sir Steve Lancashire, works with all the top trust CEOs. And I'm in danger of misquoting him, but he talked about me being me allows you to be you, or I'm meeting me. It's all about that meeting me as the human being with you, the human being. You've sort of alluded there to the fact that you modelling that in a school that hadn't necessarily had that culture historically, that you being that open, authentic, vulnerable leader. You've been really clear on doing that, and you've mentioned that your team around you are fantastic, which they are. You've built a really great team. To what extent are you really seeing that culture growing, and other people being willing to bring more of themselves, the human being, into school, into the workplace now?
It sounds really cliche, but it's a simple thing and simple act of the teachers want to go, and the TAs and all the staff, they just want to go above and beyond.
Yeah.
They really want to push the children. They really want to show the community and the parents that actually this school has got so much to give, and we've got so much to give. And I haven't said that explicitly. I haven't stood there and said, this is what you have to do. I've got, ECTs who are coming through who are just literally running ahead with assessments and teaching and learning and working with parents and doing workshops for parents. And I haven't asked them to do any of that. They've gone ahead and done that, for example. I've got my year 6 team have been fantastic for the whole year. I've got senior leaders again who just really strive for the best of the children, the support staff. It seems to be a whole culture of what can I bring to the school that will make it better. And again, that is what I've wanted. I've wanted people to come to my door and just say, Monique, can I do this? Can we have a go at doing this? Or, I want to learn how to do FFT, or I want to learn how to teach this lesson. I want to go on this course. I want to go and do in the local community. I want to go and just support next door at the local secondary school. It's just kind of like, yeah, that's great. That's absolutely fantastic. And again, I think that just comes from the fact that I don't want people to feel they are in a box. So it goes that full circle, isn't it, of encouraging them to sort of have a voice and have an opinion, but also don't feel stifled. Obviously, there might be times I say, no, that can't work. And
that is your job.
Is.
Yes.
Exactly. But at the same time, the fact they have the courage of their convictions to come and say to me in the first place, that's what I think is absolutely brilliant.
And that, huge congratulations on that in creating a school culture. We all read about toxic workplaces, about places where people aren't feeling a joy in going. And, I see that joy in your school, in your team. When I've been really fortunate to visit recently, I can feel that uplifted, everyone wanting to do that extra little bit more. And, you can cite all those bits of goodwill that are really going on in there. So congratulations. And what you're
Thank
saying
you.
there about people coming to you with ideas, I remember on day one, you telling them really explicitly to do that. So that's really, really interesting that they've done it. Even when you've said no, they still come back with another one, which, shows a really strong culture, doesn't it?
It does. And I know, again, culture takes time and the changes, have to be consistent and be implemented as well, to make sure they're effective and have that impact. But, ultimately, you want, like I said, you want people to be courageous enough to sort of push the boundaries of what education can be as well. And
Yeah.
I feel quite strongly that the team I have around me at the moment, every day I see something different in somebody, or every day I sit and I reflect and think, gosh, 6 months ago they weren't doing that and now they're doing this. And when you speak to the staff now, everything they do is for the children and everything they do is for the families, and they want to do it. It's not because
Yeah.
I'm making them do it.
So your staff all want to do things now for the children and for the families, which again is really evident.
It is, and I think, we're very lucky that we have a lot of supportive families. We're in a very small community, so it's important that, they are, even my staff are visible and present. One of the biggest things I wanted to push for them was having that confidence to have those conversations and to be visible and to talk to people and to, just do basic things like just give parents updates. And those were things that are quite alien previously. And
Yes.
now, because they are so forthcoming and because they will just talk to parents in the morning and, pick up and things like that, the whole culture of how the parents hopefully see us has also changed. So again, it's gone full circle, definitely.
That's absolutely. I mean, that's a huge success. Really, really congratulations on that, Monique. Are you still there with us?
I
We've
am
got
still
you.
here, yes.
So, Monique, I've got one last thing. You've been really generous with your time this evening. Thank you so much. What I'd like you to do, I wonder if you could sum up any advice for either new or aspiring head teachers. What have you got? What would you share with them?
Oh gosh, I think the biggest thing I've learned recently is that you're never going to please everybody. And,
Oh, you're right.
and
I
that is not,
totally as a head get that one.
yeah, and that is not a negative thing as to
No.
think don't do it. It is about, again, taking that time to step back and ultimately, like I say to my staff, the buck falls with me.
Yeah.
So whatever happens, whatever decisions are made, whether it's, from TAs all the way through to teachers, to the support staff, to site supervisors, ultimately my name is above the door, as I say.
Yeah.
So, but whatever I decide to fall back on, you're not going to please everybody. There's always going to be somebody who's not happy with what you do. And I suppose ultimately my other piece of advice would be is that think about that bigger picture. What are you working towards? What is your vision? What are your values? What do you want to get from being a head teacher? And it is about, like you say, it's developing people, it's developing children, it's working with families, build relationships. Ultimately, if you can build relationships, you will be able to have that as a foundation for everything you do. And again, I feel quite strongly about that, is that collaboration with all stakeholders is so important. Because again, people will come on the journey with you. I know it sounds cliche, but they'll come on the journey with you and they'll support you and they'll challenge you. But at the same time, that challenge is also there to push you further and to push you forward. And also remember that you're never going to get everything done on your to-do list. So yeah, you're never going to get your to-do list completed, and that's okay because it will just be there the next day. So that's my bit of advice.
Oh, Monique. So, in summary, it's been absolutely amazing to talk about your very, very successful first year as head at Springfield, the tremendous progress that you and your team have made, and particularly in those areas around culture. And around how you've changed how we are with each other, how we work, and that whole idea of ambition. So I hope that the outcomes for this week, those scores on the doors, are positive and reflect that as well. But ultimately, what you're creating there is amazing. So thank you so much. So just in summary, then, your tips for new heads, if I read those back to you. You're not going to please all the people all the time. I totally get that one. And it is you that holds responsibility for that final decision and has to do that. Clarity of your vision. I see that with you totally. And, your vision's always been really clear and what you want. Building relationships. That comes up again and again, doesn't it? Claire, I know, is listening tonight. She did a great show on transition between primary and secondary. Talked about those relationships there. And that to-do list is only ever going to get longer, not shorter.
Yeah, unfortunately, it sounds like a double-edged sword, but I think, you have to just remember that, Rome wasn't built in a day, and my to-do list, I just keep writing it differently in different colours. So you feel like you've accomplished something.
Just look back down that hill, Monique, at all the things that you have accomplished. And I'd like to thank you. You've been really generous with your time at the end of SATS week and a Heads Immersion Day today. And it's been just a real joy to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And, I hope to see you soon.
You certainly will see me soon, Monique. I shall be not far away before too long. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
that you've lost me there. So, just really great to talk to Monique, and a head teacher there giving up a big chunk of her Friday night after SATS week and head teacher immersion and all that busy stuff going on. And Monique is head of a fabulous, really improving, superb primary school with culture that's growing and culture that's really, really improving. And about 6 weeks ago, I spoke to Alice Gregson, and we did a show about leadership and about the qualities of great leaders. And we talked quite a lot about vulnerability and authenticity. And I just wanted to talk to a head who really prioritises being a human first and a professional second, and is really clear about that and about who she is to her team. So thank you again, Monique. Great to talk to you. Okay, time for me to take a brief pause while we go to our sponsors and then the news.
I've always considered myself to be a caring head teacher who acts sensitively to support staff mental health. But what I found increasingly difficult was managing the negative impact on staff mental health when resolving issues related to their employment or daily work. Heartfelt Leadership has been developed by Teachwell Toolkit as a handbook to support head teachers to overcome the challenges of school improvement while supporting staff well-being. We know that difficult conversations can quickly turn into conflict if procedures are not fully transparent, understood and followed. Our handbook takes you through step-by-step processes while maintaining mutual respect, avoiding conflict and finding solutions.
At Bloomsbury Education, we're passionate about supporting teachers with high-quality professional development books from leading experts. Whether you're navigating your first crucial years as an early career teacher or a more experienced teacher looking to refresh your practice or take a step up into leadership, our award-winning books are here to help. We publish practical books to support teaching across primary and secondary, from the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design. Visit the Bloomsbury Education website at bloomsbury.com/education to find out more, and use code BLOOMTTR24 to save 20% on all education titles. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Multiple media outlets have covered comments made by UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak about pro-Palestinian demonstrations which are taking place on university campuses nationwide. Mr Sunak called on university leaders to ensure the safety of all students and highlighted the importance of universities as places where respectful debate flourishes, but called them bastions of tolerance. He went on to criticise a vocal minority who were disrupting the lives and studies of their fellow students. He also said that there were some cases of outright harassment that has to stop. The meeting with the university leaders aimed to address the response of higher education institutions to the surge in pro-Palestinian protests, as encampments have appeared on more than a dozen campuses. Education Secretary Gillian Keegan has said that university vice-chancellors need to show leadership over concerns that campuses could become unsafe environments if they go down the route that you see in other places like the US. In recent weeks, TV footage has shown police in the United States break up demonstrations and encampments at universities and colleges across that country. Many images show officers in riot gear and in large numbers. In Scotland, new First Minister John Swinney has been accused of using the same old excuses as he refused to answer a question about whether he would live up to a promise made by the SNP to add an extra 3,500 teachers to the workforce. The Scottish Daily Express reports that Mr Swinney was accused of having a record in education of broken promises. The comments were made by Scottish Tory leader Douglas Ross, and Mr Ross went on to highlight cuts to teacher jobs by cash-strapped councils, failing to provide a laptop to every child, and abandoning a bill intended to raise standards. Mr Swinney served as Education Minister from 2016 to 2021. In England, Education Secretary Gillian Keegan has also been on record about the impact parents working from home has had on school attendance. Speaking to The Times, Ms Keegan said that 50,000 more school pupils took absences on Fridays compared to the start of the week, and cited working from home parents who whisk their children out of school on Friday to take them off for long weekend breaks. Ms Keegan said curbing the rise in absences was a top priority, and that data has helped target support for parents and schools. Fines which can be issued to parents have increased from a minimum of £20 to a minimum of £80. The BBC reports that students hoping to start undergraduate courses in 2025 will be able to see the grades that recent successful applicants have achieved at A-level or the equivalent. Universities already publish entry requirements for courses, but they can be flexible and let students in with lower grades. UCAS is making the changes to help students make informed, ambitious choices and to give them confidence in their applications. Applications for undergrad courses for 2025 open on the 14th of May. The new tool should allow students to search a course and see the most recent common grades held by those accepted onto it in previous years. It will also show how many students were offered a place compared with those who applied. Students who get free school meals will also no longer have to pay the £28.50 application fee. Finally, international students in Wales are reported by the BBC as sleeping rough on some university campuses after struggling to find housing close to lectures. A long commute from affordable accommodation has seen some students sleep in 24-hour study spaces to help reduce costs. Universities Wales says it always encourages students facing difficulty to talk to their institution. Nida Ambreen of Bangor University Students' Union said postgrad international students were particularly affected as they often come with families and were not eligible for university housing. According to latest figures, there are 20,920 non-EU international students currently studying in Wales, and the Welsh universities are aiming to increase that number as they can be charged higher fees. Members of the Welsh Senedd have raised the issues repeatedly over the last year, but full details of this story can be found on the BBC News Wales website. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
Advice for new heads. It's been really great hearing from Monique there for the last few minutes about taking up headship. And, you know, as I said at the beginning of the show, and as you may know about me, I also was a head for 13 years, 2 schools, and at the moment, not 2 schools at once, but across two separate headships. And I still work with head teachers. And I work with school leaders as well, doing a variety of different roles. So Monique has shared some really great tips for new heads, and I just wanted to end the show this evening with the next bit, just talking about advice for new heads. So, any new or aspiring heads, here are my thoughts based on a little bit of reading and a little bit of research, I'll be honest, but also based on my own experience and based on some conversations with some other heads about what they felt as well and what they would want to share. So, we've heard, first of all, from Monique, some really, really wise words there. So the first bit, you're not going to please all the people, and I think that whole phrase, "you can't please all the people all the time," is so true when you're ahead. Even take really minor things like decisions over when it snows and what you're going to do, and whether you're going to revert to online learning. Some things will please some people, some things will please others. Any issues around homework, you're never going to make decisions that are going to please everybody, because it's impossible, because there are so many different opinions, there are so many different viewpoints and vested interests in this. So ultimately, Monique was really clear then that she's the person whose name's above the door. She's the person who is ultimately accountable. So as head teacher, you do have to go with the decision that you think is right. Use all the information that's available to you. Use your judgment. When we spoke about leadership qualities, judgment is such an important one. And I think with experience, you gain more judgment, or it's possible to gain more judgment, but that can always be a little bit challenging. But actually knowing that that is your decision, your responsibility, and whatever decisions you make, you've got to live with those. So make them your decisions. And I was working with some leaders this afternoon, and that's just what we were talking about what we believe in our hearts, what our gut's telling us being really important, and knowing that. Monique talked about knowing your vision. And having clarity over what that is, knowing what you want to achieve, and being able to tell people what it is you want to achieve, sharing it. And next, building relationships. Now, as I said when I was talking to Monique and Claire, your show talked about relationships between different schools as part of that transition and starting to build relationships with the children. I think relationships have got a bit of a bad press recently in terms of sometimes people have sort of thought you don't need to have behaviour structures if you've got relationships. That's not what I'm saying here. But building relationships, getting to know people, doing the legwork, sharing the positives, building relationships, building trust with people is so crucial. With not just when it's with teachers, need to do that with children, but teachers need to do it with other teachers. Head teachers need to do that with their whole team. They need to build strong relationships, strong respectful relationships, and build relationships with other schools, with a trust, or with schools in the community, and with parents and carers. And if the head teacher can start to do that and model that expectation that teachers and other staff will do that too will follow. And I loved Monique's point about just know you're not going to get everything done, because prioritising is really, really important. So on to my little bits of advice for new head teachers. The first thing that I'd say is it's really important to have a plan. Know the school. So, a really wise head teacher before, when I was first taking up the reins in my first headship, said, look, think about it a bit like a garden. You need to see what grows in different seasons around like the whole year, and get to know it and understand. Don't just walk in and start doing that whole new broom sweeps clean and changing everything. But it's finding that balance and finding the things that maybe do need to be changed quickly or do need to be addressed, but taking the time and trying to pick that up as quickly as you can. So if you are starting a new headship in September, thinking about what is it you can learn about the school beforehand so that you can start to make the right sort of plan and then work on your vision. But be really clear about what your vision is for the future. What does that school look like? that needs to be really underpinned by your own values. What's important to you? And, we talked about that a little bit with Monique, didn't we? About changing the life chances of young people, keeping students and keeping their chances of doing the best they possibly can at the heart of it. But knowing that vision, being really clear, having it written, drawn, whatever works for you. If you've not got that vision, if it's not clear in your head, it's going to be really hard for you to articulate it. And then it's going to be really hard for anyone to understand it. And there's very little chance that everyone will come with you. So that big vision, that big where you're going, that vision then needs to be broken down into bite-sized chunks and a really clear strategy created, because there's no point having big ideas and big vision if we've not worked out exactly how we're going to get there. So clear strategy, clear plans, breaking it down into exactly what is going to be done each year, this term, and most importantly, this week. And out of that, then prioritize the really important things to do. Be really clear who's going to do and who's going to take responsibility for different areas. And as much as you can really try and operate in a model of distributed leadership, let other people step up so that you as head are only doing the things that only the head can do. Breaking that up so that you then can really prioritize what you're doing and have some really strong systems in place for checking the effectiveness of what everybody's doing. So know that there will be a million things to do. You can't do them all. Prioritize. Think about the focus for the term. Within that focus, what's the strategic priority for the week? What is the one strategic action that each leader will complete this week? And then make sure that the monitoring and support is really planned in, and that you've planned the monitoring as cleverly and as thoroughly as you've planned the actions. Because if that monitoring and that support isn't planned as thoroughly, it might not happen. My next thought for head teachers is we are human. And we talked about that quite a bit with Monique, about what it means to be a human and bring your human side to your leadership and a little bit of who you are. And I think that's really important. And, to just know and see you as a person, not some sort of automatron that is just there to make things difficult for people. Know that you're human. And another really important thing about being human is accepting that you don't know everything. No one knows everything. And while some people might say, well, fake it till you make it, I'd, really argue that even the most experienced and successful leaders will they'll look and they'll seek and reach out for help, and they'll ask for advice, and they'll take support all the time. And that's really, really important to be honest about that. The other thing that's important, I think, about being honest about what your strengths are and what you do know and what you don't know and what you can't do. And Monique spoke really openly there about data and the general awfulness. She's got a fantastic deputy head that she's just appointed who is really sharp on that, and Monique is better at it than she's admitted this evening. She is, because she's extremely modest, but that's not an area that she really likes to work on. So she's got someone that's really strong in that area. And again, really good leaders don't necessarily make a team that is all like them. So new heads, you might not have the chance to choose your senior team for a while. But when you do, don't just look for carbon copies of yourself, because that's not helpful. It's really important to think about how you create a balance and people that are different. Think about diversity. Think about different skills, talents. But think about common values and common attitudes. That's the bit that it is useful if they're the same. The really important bit of advice, I think, is about building that network of other local heads. Head teachers are really, really great at having WhatsApp groups and, chatting. And sometimes when you're new, you think I'm the only person who's got these problems. And as soon as you spend 10 minutes talking to other heads, you realise that actually everybody is going through this, or at least somebody else is, or at least, there'll be others that are. So get to know them. call them, talk to them, attend all the networking things that you possibly can. So sometimes for new heads, we get stuck in our schools. We think we can't go out because we can't leave anything. Actually, that getting out and getting to things and creating that network, that's really, really important. The next thing is about being really clear about the culture that you want in your school. How are we going to be with each other? And again, there's an element of collaboration, and that can happen, and we can develop that through discussion as well. But we need to be really clear on what the expectations are and how we are as leaders and as heads. And we have to then model that. So, as we talked about when we talked about leadership qualities, and when we talked about culture, if you want a culture where people don't moan, then don't moan. Because if you do, people will copy it. So it is really important that leaders walk the talk, that they act, that they model those sorts of behaviours. If we're saying that we want people to be vulnerable, if we want people to be authentic, and you hide yourself and just live behind the mask of school leader, of head teacher, then other people aren't going to open up, and that might be difficult. That might not be in your immediate sort of go-to ease of life, but that's really, really important, I think. And then following on from that, if you need to address something, don't shy away from it. So if there's something going on in your school that isn't right, and that goes against what you want things to be in your culture, or goes against a code of conduct or something else that's established, or just isn't good enough, or is a behaviour that's wrong by, particularly by one of the adults in your school, it's really important that you address it. You don't have to be horrible, but it's really important that you address it. You can address it kindly. Might be a difficult conversation, but if you leave it to rumble, it becomes okay and it becomes accepted, and it's likely to grow. And whatever practice it is that you don't want, that isn't right, that isn't appropriate, there's a risk that will become embedded, and that will become the culture rather than the one you want. And your other leaders need to do that as well. So again, one of your expectations is you to challenge that, but actually also, your other senior leaders too, and be really clear with them that that's what we all do. This is how we behave. When we see somebody who's not behaving like that, we challenge it. And that's really, really important. Again, we also need to think about that idea that sometimes less is more. And you get bombarded. When I was ahead, as particularly, it never really got any less, that level of bombardment. Every time you go to something, there's a whole load of new strategies. There's a whole load of new ideas that just get thrown at you. And it can be really overwhelming. And some people are telling you that you need to do this. Your school has to do this. If your school doesn't do X, Y, and Z, it will fail Ofsted. So you've got... And then what can happen is you can just end up with too many initiatives. So just because people are shouting at you and telling you that you've got to do X, Y, and Z, be really, really clear. Think about it carefully. I have seen some head teachers who every time that they've been out on another course, on a conference, or had a visitor in, or somebody's been to talk to them, there's another idea and another initiative. And that just becomes really, really overwhelming for all the staff. So again, really think carefully about introducing anything else that's new. Go back to your vision, go back to the big plan. Think about what's going on, think about what's right. Use your team as well to help make decisions about which of those initiatives to start with, and try and keep it minimal. Less is definitely more when it comes to initiatives. And yeah, again, Claire, you're right. It can't all be priorities. No, but people will often convince you they are. I worked at one time. We had a governor. We did a collaborative governors meeting and ended up with something like 16 priorities for 12 months for a school that was already judged to be good, and it was just unworkable. So pare it back down, keep it minimal, keep it clear, do less and do it better. And again, think about evidence-based research, because lots of things that get thrown at you have very little basis in evidence, or aren't always tried out. So be really clear, be really decisive about that, and pace yourself. Build it into a plan. Next, really keep thinking about that end goal. And again, think what you're trying to achieve, think what you're there for, keep that purpose. And we've done a show on Teachers Talk Radio about purpose for teachers in general, and why purpose is so important, and why I get so much out of working in the education world, rather than my husband who moves, or did just move t-shirts around the world. He now moves pharmaceuticals around, which is that definitely has more purpose. But going to work and just adding up or moving cheap t-shirts, I'd struggle with the purpose in that. But think about what you're trying to achieve, think about what you are achieving, and then when you've got to give difficult messages, because staff won't like some of the things that you've got to say, but if you've got a good reason, and if you can really keep the eye and really keep the clarity on what it is you're trying to achieve, that future focus, that solution focus, that's really important. And if you also tackle any issues with kindness and clarity and empathy, but ultimately remember, responsibilities are yours, and the provision, what you're providing in school, impacts on the life chances of children. Some things are going to be non-negotiable or agreed practice, and that it is important that we do this. And that all links to the idea that even when days are hard, think about what it is you're achieving. Think about that purpose. Think about the difference you are making to the life chances and the future of all of the children in your care. And enjoy it. Be proud of it. Hold your head high and really enjoy it. And my final point really goes back to that whole idea about knowing yourself. Look after yourself. Be really clear, and this isn't just for head teachers. I would say this for everybody in the teaching profession. It's a really important job, and the life chances of pupils in our care are in our hands as teachers and as school leaders. But we don't do them any benefits, and we don't give our best to them if we're burnt out and if we're broken and we're stressed and we just not at our best. So also rein back in and have a thought about what actually is good enough. What is enough? How much can you offer? What can you do? What is enough? And prioritizing self-care, looking after yourself, isn't selfish. It's actually a service to your school. So looking after you, seeing whatever you need to do to be well, to be fit, to be energized, is actually part of your job. So I would say to heads, in the same way that writing the SEF and writing the development plan and all of those jobs are part of your role, they're part of your job description, actually looking after yourself, seeing whatever it is that you do, whether it's running, time with family, exercise, meditation, or riding your horse, whatever it is, make sure you actually factor that in the same way that you'd factor in other jobs of being a head, being a school leader, and being a teacher as well. Knowing yourself as well is really important. Being a head teacher and being a teacher, being a school leader in general, is a big people job. There are multiple interactions, so many complex relationships. For some of us, that might be what we thrive on. And, we might actually get energized by that level of interaction. But many of us, and I fit into this, may actually find that doesn't energize us, and that we might be more of an introvert character. Now, getting to know yourself and finding out if you fit into that bracket, if that is something that is about you, is really valuable, because not all introverts are people that we think of as being introverted. Many introverts are actually, pretty confident and can speak with clarity and coherence, but really find out. So using something like DISC analysis or other personality tests, or knowing yourself, or through, self-coaching or reading or looking, If you're learning actually, or you're noting that you find those times with loads of people really, really exhausting, well, as a head, you are going to have to do that. And as a teacher, you have to do that. But all the more reason to know that it's really important to factor in space to energise and recover. It might be small breaks in the day, it may be longer, but the better you know yourself, the better you can then look after yourself. So much advice for any aspiring leaders, any aspiring heads. Know yourself, know your strengths and your areas for development. Know what energizes you, what saps your energy. Know how to spot any signs that you may be becoming burnt out before it becomes burnout. Make sure you're clear and you know what those triggers look like. Again, might be a case that you need to work and you need to explore that. Make a plan to check in with yourself or have someone you trust do that. But ultimately, a lot of this is down to us to trust our own judgment as well. And I think that's really, really important. So back to the beginning, exploring headship, being the head teacher. And we started by saying it's one of the most important, privileged and challenging roles there is. It has amazing purpose, and it really is, teaching school leadership is a huge privilege and a really, really great role. And there are so many benefits to it, and there's so many positives. And what we need to do is make sure that we really look after ourselves and that we make sure we are in the best place to do those roles properly. Strong networks, knowing ourselves, supporting ourselves. But most of all, I think actually take time, whatever job you do, whether you're a teacher, whether you are a middle leader, whether you're a senior leader or a head teacher, just take time sometimes to notice the positives that are happening in your job, to notice and remember the purpose behind it, remember why you do what you do, and actually to remember that you enjoy it. And I really hope you do enjoy it. And I really, really want to thank all of you who are still working full-time in schools, who are doing these fantastic jobs and are making such a difference to the lives of children and young people. Thank you so much. It has been an absolute privilege to be here with you this evening. And I look forward to talking to you again in a couple of weeks' time. Good night. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.